Football fans, far and wide, welcome back to the Football v Football podcast. I know it's been a while. We've been out for a couple weeks. Been a little under the weather. Didn't want to give you a pod where I was just coughing. So this is the pod where we're going to jump into the Super Bowl recap. We had a historic Super Bowl this past Sunday here with the Kansas City Chiefs beating the Philadelphia Eagles 38-35 in a game where the refs held fast to the script, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, that's right. And we're going to get into that a little bit later in this podcast. But we're going to start with the stars of this Super Bowl, the quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes. And I got to start with Jalen Hurts. And I'm going to circle back around to what I thought of Jalen Hurts from when he was at Alabama up until now. I think he's really evolved as a quarterback in my mind. I'd always overrated him, to be honest with you. Like I said, when he was at Alabama, and even as he transferred to Oklahoma, I'd always just kind of pegged him as one of those good big runners, kind of like a Cam Newton, but not a great passer. And I thought he was just kind of, I think it was justified that he lost his job to Tua. And we have Omar Yusuf here. I'm going to bring him on. Yo. How's it going,
man?
bro?
I'm at Target right now, so I got a few minutes. I figured I'd hop on.
Nice. Yeah, man. I was just getting into it, talking a little bit about the recap, and I was starting with Jalen Hurts, but I'll table that for now since we got you on. I wanted to get your opinion overall thoughts about the Super Bowl here, takeaways. What do you got?
Yeah. So great game. Sorry if the music's cutting me off a little bit. But,
no, you're good.
Yeah, man, that was a great game. I don't think it's funny because I feel like you only get a good game in the Super Bowl every so often. It's not like a usual thing. But this was a great game. I thought top to bottom, I felt like Philadelphia was actually the better team, roster to roster.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of showed with how they were able to compete. I think the deciding what kind of tipped the scale and kind of evened it out a little bit was obviously Mahomes, right? I think Mahomes kind of lifted the Chiefs up a little bit. And yeah, man, it was really entertaining. Obviously, I couldn't root for the Eagles, I couldn't do it, but I gotta give them the respect that they earned this year. They didn't. They didn't fall short. They didn't, do any of those things. They came through. They lived up to their billing. So props to them. And I know, you were about to get into Jalen Hurts. So really briefly, actually, before I get to that, because I'll leave you on that. But real quick about Mahomes. I think this was a really important game actually for him in terms of his legacy. Because I know, in the chat, we go back and forth on this all the time. Because I just think it's ridiculous that people were calling him the GOAT after 4 or 5 years. Whatever, it's
right.
just look, he has the potential to be, but let him earn it. Let him earn it. And I think him this season, MVP, Super Bowl MVP, second ring, I think that this was crucial. And then you throw in the fact that he's playing on one ankle basically. This was very important for him. And hey, man, like I said, I'm pretty hard when it comes to that all-time status. So for me, now I can probably consider him in my top 10, right? I know Nike's gonna come after me now, but bro, I can't just give you the number one status like that. That's just too much. But
yeah,
really important game for him. I think this kind of really elevated him and kind of cemented his. He's definitely the best quarterback of this era, right? After the Peyton Manning and Tom Brady era and Aaron Rodgers era, he's definitely kind of the king of this era.
Sure.
And I think from there, just talk about Jalen. I think Jalen was great, man. I think Jalen Hurts played fantastic. Like I was texting you guys, I think he's the best running quarterback in the league. Like,
Yes.
I know that Lamar, him and Justin Fields, and I know that Lamar is faster and probably a little bit more athletic, quicker, all those things. But if you watch the way Jalen plays, he understands running lanes. He understands like following his blockers,
Exactly.
and he's a bigger guy. Like honestly, like he can take these hits and he can punish you a little bit. And bro, those quarterback sneaks on like 3rd and 1, 3rd and goal, like whatever, they're unstoppable. Like
Yep.
I don't know how you stop that, right?
Yep.
And props to him, man. Like it's not easy for me to say. I respect his game. He seems like a decent guy. Props to him. He definitely came through on the big stage and played a great game. So
Yeah. Yeah. And, Naif is not here to say it, but his love of Mahomes makes me think that you might be the only Cowboys fan left in our chat because this guy, he seems like he's just going to become a Chiefs fan with this Mahomes love, man. And listen, don't get me wrong. I was about to get into Mahomes as well. I think he's great too, but that's a lot of love that a lot of people have for him at this point, especially Naif. I mean, we'll see, man. I mean, Naif really loves this guy.
Well, I mean, it kind of comes with the territory, right? It's like you deal with Mahomes on one end, and then I was just talking to you guys about today. It's like ESPN is hyping up, like the Hurts hype is now like getting a little. It's like guys, like there's nuance to everything. You know what I mean? He played great, but he's not like Aaron Rodgers or anything. Let's kind of relax.
Yeah.
Respect his game, appreciate what he did, and kind of let these guys grow into it. And it's our culture is like fascinated with either ripping guys or like boosting them up, and then when they don't get to a certain point, like as soon as possible, like you just go in and like you start ripping them. And it's just like, dude, just like sit back and like enjoy the game and like appreciate what these guys are doing.
Yeah, no, you're right, and it seems like there are some narratives here. Some people that have had priors about Hurts in the beginning of the season, where they're trying to kind of prove it out now. But yeah, I'm going to talk just about both of these quarterbacks here, and you can jump in at any point. But what I was talking about was just my personal evolution of how I felt about Jalen Hurts. So starting at Alabama, right? So
Yeah.
I just thought he was just like a running quarterback, kind of like a Cam Newton type, and I thought it was justified when he lost his job to Tua at Alabama in that championship game. I thought it was justified because I thought he was a great runner, but he was not a tremendous passer.
Right.
And so, even to start, as he's been in the NFL, behind Carson Wentz, behind a lot of these guys moving up, I never thought he was going to be anything great. But every year, he just seems to work a little bit harder, get a little bit better. Like you said, he's become a stellar runner in terms of how smart he is running the ball. Lamar Jackson might be faster, like you said, might be more athletic, but he's completely reckless. He has no bend. He doesn't know how to slide. He's injured in his contract year for a reason, and I'm surprised it hadn't happened sooner. But the way Jalen Hurts runs that ball, he runs with power. He runs in those lanes. He runs efficiently, and he actually set the record for most running touchdowns by a quarterback in this game with 3. And he also had that big 2-point conversion there to tie the game at the end of the fourth quarter. And he's also become more efficient as a passer, more than I thought. So that was the part of his game that I thought he didn't have at all. But he's become a very efficient passer. And what I noticed is that the most important part of his game is that he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. So as a Seahawks fan, it kind of reminds me of Geno in that way, right? So you just look for these quarterbacks that just don't make mistakes, and that's kind of what Jalen Hurts has been, and he just continues to get better. And something that you mentioned, the Philly offensive line, they just bullied Kansas City on those short yardage plays, and it wasn't even close. And I think they did it 5 or 6 times. It just kept happening over and over and over. I thought, big picture, both lines ended up playing well because the Philly running backs didn't get a lot of yards overall there. And I think, Philly kind of needs to look at getting a rookie running back this year because neither of those running backs had any juice. Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, they didn't do much of anything. I haven't been impressed with them all year. Gainwell outrushed Sanders 21-18, Just really, really paltry numbers there. And yeah, I mean that's essentially. And one other thing I noticed is, Devonta Smith is I think he's a really great receiver. I have to say, the announcers always kind of want to call him Devonte Adams. I feel like that's always at the tip of their tongue to say Devonte Adams. But as this guy comes into his own, Devonta Smith, he led this game in receiving yards. He had 100 yards. I thought he was a tremendous player. But moving on to Mahomes, I thought either he was milking that injury in a way that Aaron Rodgers usually does it, like when you just kind of milk it, or the Chiefs had given him some damn strong painkillers and shot him up with that to be able to come back in this game, because a high ankle sprain usually keeps players out several weeks, and he's just been playing right through it. So you could see it also all game. There was low snaps like all throughout the game. That center was just not in sync with Mahomes, just low snapping all game, and he just kind of divided the ball to everybody. Right, Kelsey obviously is his best player, but he got Juju involved. Kadarius Toney, I have to say, tremendous free agent pickup for the Chiefs. I thought the Giants were so dumb not to find a way to incorporate this guy. He's tremendously talented. And one other thing, if you want to jump back in, I watched the tape again with the Bradbury versus Juju matchup, which had happened most of the game. It wasn't just at the end of the game there, but there was that same play that happened in the beginning of the second quarter. The same thing happened. Bradbury was on Juju, and there was that little bit of a, just kind of a tug that happens between, receivers and DBs that don't warrant a flag. And basically, it was the same thing. It didn't stop his progress at all. It didn't impede the route. And this is something that just kind of happens, right? And it's not only that DBs do that to receivers, but receivers also grab DBs when they're trying to break off the initial line of scrimmage to get separation. They'll kind of grab them and go. And receivers also now wear those terrible shirts. And when I mean terrible, I mean it's like they're very loose and they tear easily. So that when a DB is trying to tackle them, it tears the shirt rather than gets the player down. So they have all these advantages anyway, and I mean essentially, you know that play that happened between Badbury and Juju happened in the second quarter, and there was no call at all, and it was absolutely justifiable. And yeah, I mean I'm not sure if are you still on the call here, Alma? Do you want to jump in on what you thought about Mahomes?
I'm here. I probably gotta hop off real soon, but just you're talking about the last call at the end of the game, right?
Essentially, but I'm saying that it also happened. There was another point in the game where it happened,
Yeah.
and they didn't call it.
Yeah, and I think I think you're gonna have some differences of opinion on the specific call. I think just kind of, and I understand both perspectives. I think the issue here, the real issue here, is do you call it then? You know what I mean? Like knowing the point of the game, knowing what the game is, right? Like if it's like I said, if this was like a game in week 4 or whatever, no, I don't think that this would be as controversial as it is, but because of what this was, and like you're saying, there was another similar play earlier in the game. Do you make that call then? And I think that they decided to make the call, and I think we're at where we're at now.
Yeah.
The only thing I'll say is, and I gotta hop off real quick.
Okay.
But the only thing I'll say is that the Eagles, the one thing that I will say that will prevent this from really being a major screw job is Philly still had to go back and score. You know what I mean? They still, it's not like the Saints and the Rams game from however long ago that was, the PI call. But I mean, yeah, if I was an Eagles fan, I would have been up. If I was an Eagles fan,
yeah.
I could understand, why. I could understand being upset about it. You know what I mean? I get it. I get it. But yeah, man, sometimes that's just how it goes. In the league, it sucks. you're talking to a Cowboys fan, man. Like, and I'm talking to a Seahawks fan who's had calls go against him in the Super Bowl.
Yes.
So, like, it sucks, but unfortunately, like, sometimes it happens.
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, but I gotta hop off, man. I will. Hopefully, we'll connect on the next pod, or I don't know, do something. But
absolutely, we look forward to having you on because we're definitely going to have draft podcasts, free agency podcasts as we go into the offseason. So we're going to get OY on for a lot more podcasts. OY, I appreciate it, bro.
Yep, appreciate you, man. Take care.
All right, take care, man. All right, we'll jump right back in here. Going back to the Eagles here, going for it on fourth down multiple times. I mean, and they got it. I think every single time they went for it. I want to say they went for it maybe 4 times on fourth down as well, and they either got the fourth downs, they converted it, or they drew the Chiefs offsides. They had absolutely no respect for the Kansas City defense. I think between those short yardage plays where Jalen Hurts rushed for like 1 yard or 2 yards, and those fourth down plays, I think it was about 10 times where the Eagles just bullied the Kansas City Chiefs defense. I tell you what, that Kansas City Chiefs defense was no KC masterpiece. They were absolutely bullied for most of this game. CJ Gardner-Johnson, I got to give a shout out to this guy on the Eagles. This guy was flying around, using his body as a weapon. He briefly knocked Isaiah Pacheco out of the game, and he was just dealing hits the entire game. This guy was flying around. So kudos to that guy. The Philly defense in the fourth quarter, I have to say, they really broke down. Just leaving KC receivers wide open for touchdowns. Happened twice in the fourth quarter, and it was that same route that they were running all game. That same route, that same fake slant into a go route. That was a route that Juju ran on Bradbury in the beginning of the second quarter. I was talking about where they had that hold that was not called. That was the route that they got the first touchdown in the fourth quarter. That was the route that they got the second touchdown in the fourth quarter, and that was the route that they ran on that phantom hold call as well. That was 4 times significantly in that game. It must have been many other times, but they loved that route. They kept running it. And it just seemed like it tricked the refs into calling it. And I'm going to jump right into this controversy again. That holding call. I watched it again. I watched it in real time. I watched it not because when you watch it on social media, they're going to give you little clips of it, and then they slow it down as Juju is making that run. But if you just watch it in real game time. Watch the actual highlight of that play. There was no impeding of the route at all. And it was at least 5 yards overthrown, and Juju never even complained about it. The first one he complained about at the beginning of the second quarter. Didn't even complain, didn't even expect the flag. And never felt like he was held. And receivers will always give you an indication that they've been held. And there was absolutely nothing from Juju. No complaining, no nothing. It was all Mahomes crying about not converting on third down at the end of the game and giving the ball to Jalen Hurts with 2 minutes left and a chance to win the game, and he would have absolutely done it. There was no defense in this game. This was a 38-35 game. And so that was just it was an egregious call. It really, puts a stain on the Super Bowl in my opinion. To give them that, and then to give them just that short field goal to win the game there. They left a few seconds left on the clock for the Eagles to go down. They had no chance. It was, they got it back on the 20 or whatever, and with 1 play left. So I was really disappointed in the refs here. Like I said at the beginning, there's a lot of talk about scripts that are going around as a joke. But when you make a call like that, you got to have a better feel for the game if you're the refs. You can't make that call, especially if there's no impeding of the route. You got to let them play, and listen. Congrats to the Chiefs. It's not their fault. Maybe it's a little bit of Mahomes trying to impose his will on the referees. But after the game, Juju was kind of talking. There's like all these memes on social media about related to Valentine's Day and talking about Bradbury holding you tight and all this kind of stuff. And um, kind of I think the general stock of the Chiefs, in my estimation, has kind of gone down a little bit. They're becoming that team that it was on the ascension, and now they're kind of the team that you feel like the NFL wants to do well, and most fans don't like that, especially after a call like that at the end of the game where you don't feel like they earned it at the end. Maybe all game you felt like they earned it, but not at the end. So as kind of a unbiased watcher of this game, not a fan of either teams. Um, I thought that was a terrible call, and they should have let it go and let the players play. But congrats to the Chiefs. Great season. Eagles, great season. What was not great, though, and I'm going to throw this in at the end of the podcast, was that halftime show. And this is just kind of a broader thing about the NFL trying to make social statements here. They're going to say, they wanted Rihanna to do it because she was pregnant, and they're trying to make a point about how, I don't know, a pregnant woman can do whatever, can work and can do a halftime show. But I think it was just it was a really lame move, and it came at the expense of really the only purpose of the halftime show, which is to be entertaining. And there was not a lot of entertainment in this. You had people lifting them up and down, and there was no guest stars. There was no, I don't know, real dancing, and I don't know. It was all very lame. So halftime show, that's a 2 thumbs down. Super Bowl, the game, I'd say 1.5 thumbs up, except for that last call. So that's the pod, ladies and gentlemen. That's our Super Bowl recap pod. Had to get this out. That puts an end to the 2022-2023 NFL season, ladies and gentlemen. Great season. Inaugural NFL season for this podcast. I really hope that you guys have enjoyed this. I would really love some feedback. If you guys have any feedback about what you'd like to see, how you feel like we can get better, how you feel like what would allow you to become more engaged. We want to be a podcast for you guys, for the fans. Let me know. Let me know in the comments. Like I said, we are on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead, give a like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. You're listening on a podcast platform, go ahead and subscribe. Give a 5-star rating. That would be much appreciated to get this podcast more well known. You're on Instagram and Twitter. We're on there as well. And yeah. Thank you guys so much for listening to the Football v Football podcast. We'll be back with more NFL coverage. We'll also have English football coverage as well as we approach the Champions League and the EPL really starts to heat up, that race between Arsenal and Man City and some of these other dark horse teams. Thank you all for listening. Have a fantastic day, football fans.